In this video, you are seeing the Japanese imperial family in transit. But why aren't they using a Mercedes or another luxury car?
And after all, what car is it that they are using?
The car of the emperor and the mafia, the greatest luxury that the Japanese currently produce. The only Toyota V12 in the world, the pinnacle of Japanese automotive engineering, not by chance called the Japanese Rolls-Royce. Imagine a car where every employee working in its body shop has their own tools, custom-made to fit their hands. All to maintain perfection. Telling you the story of the greatest and best Toyota ever produced is without a doubt a major undertaking. Many people talk about Japanese sports cars, but no one remembers to talk about the luxury sedans, the Japanese executive cars. Whenever this topic comes up, people think of Infiniti, or more recently, Lexus, but there have been many models. For example, the Nissan Fuga, the Nissan Sima, the Nissan Presidente, which was the first, and the Mitsubishi Dignity. In fact, it might be worth making a video one day just about Japanese luxury sedans, but the star of this video is still being produced today. It costs a fortune, and you'll probably never own one, because it's only produced in Japan. Very few units live there. And for you to really understand this story after all, there are a lot of details. I'll start by talking about the mechanical aspects first, and then I'll get into the more interesting part, the curiosities and how it's assembled. But before that, I need to give you some historical context. Why did Japan need luxury models? And why did they decide to create their own? So let's get into it, because this is definitely one of the best automotive stories you'll ever hear. After World War II, the Americans had an issue with Japan. Knowing that they had dropped their bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, they feared that over the years, the Japanese might develop feelings of revenge toward them, and as a result, the country could become militarized, potentially becoming a threat to American security in the future. In addition, the Americans also feared that if they left Japan without any assistance, it would inevitably lead to the country being influenced by China, or worse, falling into the favor of the Soviet Union, which would be a major headache. Just imagine a nation like Japan falling into Soviet hands. Thus, the Americans chose to make agreements with the Japanese, guaranteeing them security and major investments to develop Japan in exchange for their loyalty to the American government. So, these investments began to pay off, resulting in the so-called Japanese economic miracle. Companies started to grow rapidly, and soon a middle and upper class of company executives, politicians, and entrepreneurs began to emerge. And obviously, they also wanted more sophisticated cars. The Toyota Crown and Toyota Corona would appear, but in fact, the first truly luxury Japanese car emerged in 1965, the Nissan President. But if you take a good look at it, you'll see it was heavily influenced by America. It looks like a car designed in the United States, not in Japan. What the Japanese lacked was a luxury car with a Japanese look, with Japanese inspiration. And with that in mind, the Toyota Century was created. The Century was the project of engineer Kenya Nakamura, who joined Toyota but mainly worked on improving the factory machinery, developing better tools, presses, and so on. At that time, Toyota was still very focused on commercial vehicles and light trucks, and Nakamura insisted that they should invest more in passenger cars for the Japanese population. After so much insistence, the Toyota directors finally allowed him to develop passenger cars, and so he created the Toyota Crown 8, which would become the basis for the Century. Toyota then decided that in 1967, the year marking the centenary of Sakicho Toyoda's birth, the founder of the brand, they would launch the Century, which, when translated, means century. It would also serve as a way to honor their founder. The Century's design was so well executed that it remained in production for 30 years, almost without any changes. From 67 to 97, it underwent only minor updates. The first Century, launched in 1967, featured a 3-valve engine with 150 horsepower. It was enormous. For comparison, a current Ford Fusion is 4.87 meters long. The Century was 5 meters and 12 centimeters long. The car maintained a conservative and dignified air, in addition to being very imposing. Although it kept the same look for 30 years, small changes were made over time. But it's in 1997 that things really get intense. The aesthetic changes were minor, but Toyota's engineering was about to shine. The front and rear suspension received the pneumatic elements, the size increased by 10 centimeters, and then came the crown jewel, a Toyota 12 engine. To this day, the only car to receive this engine was the Century, and the reason is simple. At that time, its competitors were none other than the Audi A8, BMW 7 Series, Mercedes-Benz S-Class, and Jaguar XJ. All of them already featured V12 engines, and Toyota didn't want to be left behind. Imagine the cost of developing a V12 engine from scratch for a model that would only be sold in Japan. And it wasn't for just any Japanese person, you know? It wasn't enough to just walk into the dealership and have the money to buy a Century. You needed social status to buy it. Even though it was a 12, this engine made only 280 horsepower. That's because Japanese law at the time didn't allow vehicles with engines more powerful than that. And starting in 2005, it would receive a 6-speed AC transmission. But even with only 280 horsepower, this V12 was very thirsty, since its average fuel consumption was 3 kilometers per liter under normal driving conditions. Starting in 2018, the third generation of the Century was introduced. As always, it maintained the aura of a car worthy of respect. The electronically controlled air suspension system was improved, but unfortunately it lost the V12, which was replaced by a 5-valve hybrid engine with 381 horsepower plus an electric motor with 224 horsepower, generating over 600 horsepower in total. This engine is in fact from the Lexus LS600H. Now that you know more about the mechanical side, let's get to know the coolest part of all. What is the Century's production line like? Only Toyota's best employees are brought in to work on the Century's production. It's a level of care and attention that you will rarely see in any other vehicle. Obviously, everything you can imagine in terms of safety and comfort features is present in the Century, with one of the main comfort highlights being the air suspension, which allows for a smooth ride. Although there is plenty of comfort for the driver, the priority is the passenger, since it was designed as a car that would not be driven by its owner, but by a chauffeur. The car is designed for 4 adults, and as standard, its seats are made of wool as they are considered quieter and more comfortable, but leather seats are also available as an option. The interior is refined and extremely well finished. Every detail has been carefully considered. The wood is of the highest quality. The wood used inside each car always comes from the same tree to ensure there is no risk of different color tones. Everything is perfectly aligned. The greatest comfort is found in the left rear seat, considering that in Japan the steering wheel is on the right side, so the passenger sits in the left rear seat, and if there is no one in the front passenger seat, can even open up the seat upholstery and stretch out their legs. Since some features of the car were designed with the Japanese imperial household in mind, the floor is aligned with the door sill, making the floor flat. This makes it easier, for example, for the women of the imperial family who usually wear kimonos to enter and exit gracefully. The seat was also designed to be in a position that makes it easy to read a newspaper, since the emperor has the habit of reading newspapers every day, in addition, of course, to the traditional Japanese curtain. The sound insulation is perfect, including a noise-cancelling system, and even the tires were designed with this in mind. All of these, combined with a hybrid engine and a CVT transmission, makes the ride extremely quiet. In fact, those who have ridden in the car say that the only car in the world quieter than this one is the Rolls-Royce. The rear passenger has a TV at their disposal. Lowering the center armrest reveals a series of buttons. With them, you can electrically adjust the position of the front seat, the seat temperature, the massager. There's also a microphone to speak directly with the driver and even a built-in voice recorder, which was designed so the owner can record their ideas or even a conversation or meeting right there inside the vehicle. The Century is manufactured by Kanto Auto Works, a kind of Toyota subsidiary, which has now already merged with the main company. Its production takes place in a very specific location, in the shadow of Mount Fuji, a Japanese postcard landmark. And that's also where Japanese taxis are made, which are very traditional, or at least were, until not long ago. In fact, very soon I'll bring you a video just about these taxis, which seem so old, right? But they have a really cool story, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that next video as well. The manufacturing process is simply flawless. The steel sheets, which already arrive with the creases, would be ready to produce a new Toyota car boot, not the Century. The assembly line workers take this sheet, along with their tools, and work on it until it is perfect. Only employees who have already proven themselves to be more skilled than their colleagues on Toyota's production lines are part of this production line. When a worker manages to join the Century production line, Toyota provides them with a new set of tools, which are designed according to the size and shape of each person's hand. In other words, each person has their own exclusive toolbox, which they can take with them when they retire. The obsession with perfection is so great that only 3 employees are qualified to do this manual finishing. The creases on the bodywork are simple, since the Century doesn't have aggressive lines in order to maintain its traditional look. But why this obsession with the perfection of these creases? Because its paint has a secret. More than just adding color, it serves as a mirror for the emperor. Basically, when the Japanese emperor gets out of the car and the door is closed, the C-pillar needs to be so perfectly polished and aligned that he can see his reflection in it and check if everything is right with his clothing, he or any other member of the imperial household. The Century, when painted in Urushi black, is finished using a technique over 9,000 years old, where each layer of paint is then wet sanded for 4 hours. The car takes more than 40 hours just for the painting process, and it receives many more layers of paint than traditional Toyota and Lexus models. And there's no high technology involved. The work is done by hand. After all that, there's an inspection where even microscopic imperfections must be detected. Each vehicle has a book with its biography, the Century History Book. Every stage of the process is recorded and signed by hand by the person responsible on the assembly line, so that every Century has a record of this at the factory. Even those that have been on the road for years still have back at the factory a record of exactly when, how, and by whom they were produced. The phoenix, present in various parts of the vehicle, is the symbol of the Japanese imperial house, but its status has also attracted another kind of Japanese elite. So, if you're ever in Japan and see a Toyota Century, keep your distance just to be safe. The last thing you'd want is to crash into the car of a Japanese mafia boss, the Yakuza, who are also very fond of these models. After 40 years using the Nissan Prince Royal, in 2006, the Japanese Imperial House decided to change cars. The Imperial family owns 4 or 5 of these vehicles, including conventional versions, a limousine, and one adapted as a hearse. At this point, you must be wondering, but who would be crazy enough to buy a Toyota for the price of a Mercedes? And this is precisely the most fascinating part. Ostentation is not something well regarded in all cultures. Japan is a country that greatly values hard work, and Toyota states that Century owners are successful people who have worked hard to get where they are. Owning a Century is not just a sign of having money, but of having worked hard and earned the position you have reached. You know when someone has so much money that they have nothing left to prove to anyone? It's something like that. It's that person who is so high up that luxury has become normal for them, and they like to see their hard work represented in a traditional vehicle, crafted with such care by Japanese hands. For this reason, the Century sold just over 100 units outside Japan, since people there can't really understand the connection between the Century and work and won't associate a car like it with luxury as they would with a Mercedes S-Class or BMW 7 Series. So it doesn't sell well outside Japan. Although today Toyota claims there are no restrictions on selling the car, for a long time it was only sold to people who were recognized in society and who had prestige in the business world. It was the means of transportation for top executives and owners of companies and banks. Amazingly, buying a used Century is not expensive. That's because few people are interested in the used model, since maintaining it is expensive, its fuel consumption is high, and Japan's streets are narrow, making driving tiring. Also, due to its painting process, it can't be left out. It needs care and a garage to protect the paint. It still commands respect. For this reason, many mobsters, seeking the respect and authority that the car conveys and having the resources to maintain it, buy it used. The price of a new Century today is around 20 million yen. In a direct conversion, that would be about 800,000 reais. Just so you have an idea, a BMW 320 costs around 250,000 in Japan. So you can already see how expensive it is. In 2024, Toyota officially launched the Century SUV. I won't go into much detail about this one, because that's not the focus of the video, but it follows the same luxury line as the Century, with exquisite and very luxurious finishing. What an amazing car, right guys? So now, if you ever come across a Toyota Century, you'll know how much it represents and how imposing it is in Japan. If you really enjoyed this video, leave a comment to engage with me, share it with a friend who also likes cars, and don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks very much, and see you next time.